All right, Jasper, complete the sentence. Pricing tools are great at blank, but they will never tell you blank.
Pricing tools are great at saving you time, but they will never tell you what to price at.
Oh, interesting. Why won't they?
That would be great. If you could just turn on a tool and it will automatically price correctly for you. It just doesn't work like that.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
It's a machine. You give it input and it'll give you output that depends on your inputs. So if your input's wrong, then your output's going to be wrong. It's a computer in that sense. Yeah, it's not not yet. Maybe in the future it will be, but it's not an artificial intelligence tool that can think like a human.
Yes. We don't have self-driving pricing tools yet.
Exactly. It's a tool like any other tool. It offers functionality that would be almost impossible to do manually. Like, for example, dynamic minimum night stay settings. So if you have like a 2-night minimum stay, but if there's a 1-night gap, it will automatically make that night available for 1-night stay. If you were to do that manually, you would have to go in your calendar every day to make those adjustments. So essentially, you could do pretty much anything that a pricing tool does. You could do it manually, but it would take you a lot of time.
100%. Welcome back to Get Paid for Your Pad. This is a Rev Up episode. I'm Kaye Putnam, head of marketing here at Freewyld Foundry, and I am interviewing Jasper Rivers, our premier expert and resident geek when it comes to revenue management and driving more revenue. We are currently managing revenue for just shy of 40 clients, over $65 million in annual bookings that are all over the world. And I cannot wait to dive in and pick Jasper's brain in this episode about where pricing tools end and revenue management begins. So for people that are like our clients, pro operators, they're generating millions of dollars in bookings. Where does the tool end and revenue management begin?
Well, where does the tool end? The way I think about it is you as a human being, you are doing the revenue management, right? And you're using the pricing tool as a tool. For example, let's say I want to mow the lawn. Did I say that correctly? I could go out there with scissors and like chop off every single little piece of grass one by one. Or I could use a machine and push it. The machine isn't mowing the lawn by itself, right? I'm still like pushing it, right? So where does the tool end? The tool can't think. The tool just does what you tell it to do. It's not a smart entity. It can't think for itself. So that's the challenge with the mindset that a lot of operators have, because we have clients, or I should say potential clients, that come to us and, we do our revenue report for them. Sometimes they ask us, well, I'm already using Price Labs. So what are you guys going to do different than I? Right? Because I have a pricing tool. So in their mind, it's like, oh, if you have a pricing tool, then you're maximizing revenue. That couldn't be further from the truth. Because if I put numbers in the pricing tool that are not going to lead to good prices, then we could be at 0% occupancy. Like, what if I put like $10,000 in our base prices? Like, no one's going to book our units. I could be sitting there and saying like, hey, what am I doing wrong? I have a pricing tool. Isn't that supposed to, you know what I mean?
Just popping in here quickly to ask you if you are going to be at VRMA in Vegas in October. We are going to be there and we would love to see you. We have sponsored a booth 1118 on the expo floor. If you're doing over $1 million in revenue, we'll be offering free live on the spot turbo revenue audits. So we'll pop open your pricing tool, take a look at your pricing strategy, and let you know exactly where you might be leaving money on the table and how much more you could be making when you implement these changes. It takes less than 15 minutes. Jasper and one of our revenue managers are going to be right there at the booth doing these live at the event. We're also going to be teaching what Verma is calling a skills lab. Our skills lab is called Pricing Power, how the top 1% outperform the market. It's going to be a fun, interactive, hands-on workshop where we'll be pulling back the curtain of exactly what moves the needle for revenue management in any size portfolio. That's going to be on Tuesday at 11:15 a.m. local time, and we cannot wait to see you in the room. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, if you tell it to do something stupid, it will do something stupid. Does that make sense? I always find it fun to do these episodes with you because when I do my solo episodes or I talk to other revenue managers or our revenue managers on our team, we know what we're talking about.
Yep.
So I think it's always fun to talk to you because you don't have a clear understanding of what we actually do, or you have somewhat of an understanding, but you're not in the weeds, right?
Yep.
So I always find it interesting because it kind of teaches me like how people who are not in it think about revenue management, which is always fun.
Yes. Yes. I enjoyed these episodes so much as well because I learn a lot. And I think the spot that I'm in, I'm sure our clients know more than I do because they've been in the short-term rental industry for years and years. In many cases, they've been running their own pricing. But the level of knowledge and expertise that you have just so outpaces for certain what I have, but I have a sense based on the results that we get from our clients that it absolutely outpaces everybody that's listening to this episode as well. So my goal is to bring this down to more of a layman's level so that people can understand what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and how you're actually driving these results. Because we've gotten that objection that you mentioned. It's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing the thing. What's different here? And there's so much that's different. So we're going to dive into that. You mentioned the dynamic minimum night stay settings and dealing with orphan nights, those types of situations. What else do pricing tools do reliably well? What do you rely on them for in your workflow?
The pricing tool has a lot of different settings, essentially. As an example, we can set a last minute pricing discount, but you can do that in many different ways. So you could tell the tool like, hey, 3 weeks before check-in, start lowering the prices, start adding a last minute discount and gradually raise the discount from 0 to 20%. Or let's say we're 20 days before check-in and we're doing 0 to 20%. So 19 days before check-in, it would apply a 1% discount. 18 days before check-in, a 2%. And so every day it will lower the prices a tiny little bit. And what that does is, number one, obviously it provides a discount last minute because as we all know, last minute, it's hard to book at premium prices, right? So we got to lower the price if we want to get booked last minute. But you could do that manually, of course. I can go in my PMS and every day lower it by 1%. But can you imagine like how much work that would be? I mean, it's just nuts. Also, what it does is every time you send the price update to the OTA and you lower the price a little bit, it gives the OTA an incentive to show your listing to more people because you just lower the price. So if you lower the price every day a little bit, that helps with the visibility. Because let's say you have a static price. Let's say you have it at $200 and you're not getting a lot of bookings, right? What incentive does Airbnb have to show your unit to more people? I mean, nothing's changed. So if they weren't booking before, they're probably not going to book now. But now you lower the price to $195 and then Airbnb sees that and thinks, okay, well, maybe at $995, somebody will book it. So let's show it to some more people. There's other benefits from having a pricing tool than just being able to set prices more efficiently. I would say the other benefit of having a pricing tool is that you get access to data. If you set your prices manually in your PMS, how are you going to know what other units are priced at? How are you going to know what the occupancy is in the market? You don't have any data to go off of. So that's another major benefit from having a pricing tool is you get data about your market, about your neighborhood. You can create comp sets, right? Competitive sets of similar units. So you get access to a lot of information and you get access to a lot of functionalities, like a lot of settings that you can put into your pricing tool that will save you a lot of time. What it does is it allows you to price in a way that otherwise you couldn't do it. You just don't have enough time. I mean, if you want to do everything, if you have 50 units and you want to do everything that your pricing tool is going to do in terms of adjusting prices on a daily basis, you won't have enough time.
Right. You mentioned basically crap in, crap out. So if you put $10,000 as your base price, you're going to get just wildly inaccurate pricing. I imagine even if you have quote unquote the right base price at one specific point of time, that changes. Is that true? What adjustments are you actually making on a day-to-day basis for our portfolio and for our clients?
Essentially, the goal of a revenue manager is to price correctly for each date. And what I mean by correctly, because there's some stuff that we don't know. You can't calculate what the optimal price is. In the end of the day, the people that are on the platforms looking for places to book, they decide what bookings will happen. So there's no way to know what the optimal price is, but you have clues, you have data, and you can see bookings coming in for your properties. And those bookings, every single booking has a little bit of information. So let's say I'm looking at our Freewyld cabins, right? And we're in October and the booking window in Idlewild is pretty short. Let's say that for one unit, we are getting several bookings a day for May next year, for June next year, for July next year, right? And you look at the data, you see that none of the other units in the markets are getting booked. We're the only one that getting bookings for those months. What does that tell you?
What does it tell us?
There's 600 cabins or 600 units. Most of them are cabins in Idlewild. Let's say there's only 2 people that are looking to book something in May next year, June next year, and they're all booking our units. Our units must be priced very attractively if they're all picking our units. That's a signal, right? That tells you like, hey, quote unquote, the market, the people that are booking are telling us that we're a very attractive option, maybe too much of an attractive option, probably.
Yep.
On the flip side, if we are looking at the upcoming weekend, we have 0 occupancy. It's Friday today, right? Say, imagine our units are empty for the weekend. What does that tell? And we look at the market and we're like, oh, the market's occupied by 80%. Like, what does that tell us? That we were priced too high. And so there's clues that will help you understand, hey, are we priced competitively? And by competitively, I mean, are we a reasonable option for somebody to be looking for a place to stay? So obviously we don't know exactly what the optimal price is, but by looking at our forward occupancy, we talk a lot about pacing, essentially comparing our forward occupancy to market. That will give us an idea of whether we are priced correctly or not. Obviously there's other things that we can look at. We can also just look at, what did we get booked at last year? If last year in May, we get booked on average at $200 and right now we're priced at $300, we're probably priced too high. If we are looking at similar units in the market, and for us, it's a little tricky because in Idlewild, we have a premium product and there's not really that much that we can compare to. So we're always like way above the markets anyway. So that's a little trickier. But for most operators, they're probably somewhere within the range of where our similar units are priced at. If you have a 1-bedroom, to say like very standard 1-bedroom unit in a competitive market, and there's another 500 1-bedrooms, if those 500 1-bedrooms are priced between $100 and $200, then probably if you price it at $80, that's probably too low. You could probably get more, right? If you price it at $250, you're probably going to be a little bit too high. But on the flip side, if you put it at 250 and people are booking it, then it's not too high, right? So in the end of the day, the market decides. Like, we don't decide. We can have an opinion. I talk to some of our clients sometimes and they'll look at a price and they'll ask me like, hey, I don't think that price is right. I don't want to be rude, but I'm always like, well, I'm sorry to break the news, but the market doesn't really care about what you think, right? Neither does the market care about what I think. In the end of the day, yeah, we can have an opinion. For example, look at our cabins in Idlewild. We have tiny little studio, Black Mountain, that absolutely crushes it. And we have a larger cabin, Ursus, that in our opinion, it's like, wow, Ursus is a really cool unit, but it doesn't give us the same performance. If you compare it to the market, our Black Mountain unit is outperforming the market way more. But when we were building it, we were like, wow, this unit should be doing this, right? And this unit should be doing that. But that's just our opinion, right? In the end of the day, the travelers, the guests, they decide. And so we need to be humble in that sense and not getting carried away by our own preconceptions about what the price should be. The market decides, as with any other product, right? You can develop, you're coming out with some soft drink and you say, wow, this soft drink is so good. Like, it should cost $10 a can. Put it in the supermarkets and you tell the manager of the supermarket, you have to sell this at $10. The manager will be like, well, but no one's buying it at that price. And you could be, no, but I know this product. It should be $10. The rest of the world just doesn't understand it. You know what I mean? It's just silly, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's like entrepreneur fantasy land. We get emotionally attached to our products and our properties. And while we might want the best for them, we have to listen to those signals. So when you see those signals, what specifically are you changing or adjusting or updating?
There's a lot of factors involved, but essentially our goal is to what I call participate in the entire booking window. So if the booking window is 3 months, if the first people are starting to book about 3 months from the check-in date, then I want our unit to be priced so that it's a reasonable option. Again, it doesn't mean that it's going to get booked, but at least it should be a reasonable option. Now, if I see that we're 2 weeks into the booking window and we still haven't gotten any bookings and the market is now 10% booked up, for example, and we're still at 0, now I'm starting to think that, oh, maybe we're priced a little bit too high. Now, let's say that's 100 people. If there's 1,000 units, there's 100 people that made bookings for specific dates, and none of them chose us. We should probably lower the prices a little bit for that particular time period. So we're always looking at like when are people booking and are we getting our fair share of the bookings in that part of the booking window. And especially the early part of the booking window is important because we use this as an analogy for our presentation at Verma. Can we do a little peek under the
Yeah, let's give them a
the
sneak
hood?
preview. Yes.
So I came up with this analogy because we are showing a case study of one of our clients they were doing a good job on their pricing, except for they weren't monitoring their pacing very well. So their booking window was like, I don't know, maybe like 20 days or something, or 15. But the median booking window I'm talking about now, that's like 35, 40. So that means that the first people are starting to book maybe 3 months out. They were not getting any bookings until like a month out. So all those people that would book in the first 2 months, they weren't getting any of those bookings. So now you have to fill up all your units and you only have a third of the booking window left. So I thought of a good way to explain this to people who are not so familiar with all these terms. Imagine you have a shopping street and every day at 9 a.m., people walk into that shopping street and they start shopping and people leave at 5 p.m. So there's 8 hours. Now let's say you have 3 stores and they're all very similar. They offer the same type of clothes, same price points, Zara, H&M, and Mango. Do you know Mango, or is that just in Spain?
I shopped at Mango when I lived in Italy, so I'm familiar. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, for the people that don't know these brands, these are all like, they're nice clothes, but they're very affordable. They're all a bit the same. So anyway, imagine the Zara and the H&M are open from 9 to 5. And then the Mango, they think that they don't realize that people start shopping at 9 a.m. So they open their store at 1 and they have to get all their sales from 1 to 5. Now, obviously that store is not going to make as much revenue as the other ones because they're only open for 4 hours. Well, if you're not competitively priced for part of your booking window, that's like your store is closed, essentially. Like the difference between putting your prices too high and so that people won't book you, that's basically being closed. It's the same thing. You basically don't get sales. But a lot of people are not aware of, well, what is the booking window? They just look at their last year's bookings, for example. You can look at pacing based on last year's numbers, right? So in this case, for example, this client, because they weren't really watching the booking windows, they had no idea that they could be booked much further in advance. And those earlier bookings, typically you'll be able to get a better price because the prices are higher. The further you go out in the future, usually the higher the prices. You can be competitive at a much higher price if you're early in the booking window than if you're late in the booking window when everybody is dropping their prices last minute. But you got to understand, like, when are people starting to book? And then on the flip side, if people are booking your units outside of the booking window, every week we look at several portfolios of potential clients that do like a revenue report with us. I see it sometimes where they're booked way ahead of the booking window. So there's almost nobody booking yet, but like they're getting booked. And as a result, the prices are too low. So they could be charging higher prices. Right. So that's the flip side. But they wouldn't know either because in their mind, they're thinking, ooh, I got booked really early on. That's awesome. You know, people like to see occupancy on the books. So, and then if your price too low, your occupancy will be really high, which is a good sign in general. Like people like that. So we also get operators sometimes who are like, how can you guys increase our results? I mean, we're 85% occupied and the market's only 70% occupied. So we're doing really well. I'm like, yeah, but I can price our units at $10 and we'll be 100% occupied for the next 10 years. But we're not making much money. It's not just about occupancy. It's about maximizing revenue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Are there any other metrics? So you mentioned occupancy. Are there any other metrics that people kind of like over focus on that actually signal that there is maybe even danger or a missed opportunity? Like people are celebrating really high occupancy, but it's potentially a red flag, which people don't realize. Is there anything else like that that people look at and misunderstand?
Yeah, I'd say people often look at their forward occupancy because those are numbers that are kind of by default, they show up in the pricing tool. It's if you're on Price Labs, you probably automatically have the 7-day, the 30-day, and the 60-day occupancy. So people will look at that. And then if those numbers are pretty high, then they feel like things are going well. If those numbers are not so good, they'll see like, hey, I don't have much occupancy in the next 30 days for this unit. Let's slash the prices. Mm-hmm. Typically, operators will manage last minute inventory more so than inventory that's like further out and early in the booking window. I think another important metric to look at is pickup, which not everybody looks at that, because if you think of your forward occupancy is kind of like where you're at, then your pickup is kind of the direction and where you're going. Let's say I have a new unit and obviously like the day I publish it, my forward occupancy is 0 and I set a certain price. And now let's say that in 1 week, I get 4 bookings in 1 week. And let's say book nights is, let's say like 15. Well, if you're booking 15 nights on 4 bookings every week, then your calendar is going to fill up fast because obviously there's only 30 days in the month. And so if you're booking 15 days in a week, then your calendar is going to fill up very quickly. Basically, your forward occupancy is going to go up, right? Compared to the market. And when you start, your occupancy is very low, but we're not going to lower the prices. If the pickup looks good, we're not going to lower the prices, right? And this is the same for existing units as well. Like if I'm looking at a unit and I'm noticing like, hey, our MPI, our market penetration index, which is our forward occupancy divided by the market occupancy, let's say it's 50%. That's too low. I want it to be at like 100 or maybe 120, 140, depending on what season we're going into. Well, if I see that our booking pickup is higher than we would need to fill up the calendar, if that makes sense, then I wouldn't necessarily lower the prices because we're low on occupancy, but we're catching up. But if we're at 100, but I haven't seen any bookings come in the last 2 weeks, I might lower the prices a bit because even though we're at pretty close to where I want to be in terms of forward occupancy, there's nothing coming in. So if no bookings come in, every day your forward occupancy is going to go down a little bit. Look, in the end of the day, this is stuff that you have to look at it every day, because if you look at your pricing tool once a week, the numbers are just not really going to make that much sense to you. It's the devil is in the details, as they say. It's hard to give general guidelines as a result because there are so many nuances. For me, market penetration index and booking pickup are probably the most important metrics for us to look at when I'm talking about pacing, forward looking. In my opinion, the most important thing to look at forward looking. History will tell you something as well, but forward looking is more powerful because you can look at the past, but the future might be different than the past. It's better to look at the future and see what you can learn from the future before it happens. I don't know if this makes sense, but
well, that's what allows you to make decisions that are actually going to impact your bottom line. When you're looking forward, you can make decisions about what to do right now and forward, which is super powerful. Quick plug, if this sounds interesting to you, or if you're not sure how to calculate or implement or utilize MPI pacing pickup that Jasper is mentioning, we are going to be teaching this in depth at Verma in Vegas very, very soon. So make sure that you attend the Pricing Power Skills Lab on Tuesday, and we'll be teaching all about that. And Jasper will be right there in the room, so you can ask him questions directly. It's going to be super, super fun. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And don't forget the live pricing audit that we're going to do on the screen.
Yes. I'll save that for later, just as a little curiosity hook here. We'll talk more about that in a
Spilling
moment.
all the beans.
Yeah, that's right. So you've been talking a lot about how you compare the portfolio that you're working with to the market or like to a comp set. What are some of the most common either myths or mistakes that you see people related to comp sets?
Well, first of all, I think people in general rely too much on comp sets and too little on forward occupancy. Like I said, people will spend a lot of time sometimes like creating all these custom comp sets in their pricing tool, which is a good thing, but I think it's a little bit overrated. Let's say you have a very unique unit, then yes, you want to create a unique comp set. So you want to actually pick the units that you want to compare to, right? Yeah. But for the most part, if you have units that are pretty common in your markets, the standard comp set that the tools provide are probably good enough. And you're better off spending that time focusing on your pacing and really understanding like your booking window, watching every single booking that comes in and seeing what can you learn from the bookings and what can you learn from your forward looking occupancy, and really like getting granular on your prices for the entire booking window. That's where most of your time should go into. And sometimes I see people getting very fancy with their comp sets, but then their pacing is way off. I'm like, okay, it's cool that you created this incredible comp set, but if you don't understand your booking window, you're not managing your prices according to what you're learning from the bookings that are coming in, then that's kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, you're like spending all of your time cleaning the dashboard in your car instead of paying attention to the engine.
Yeah, exactly. Also, one thing that I noticed that a lot of people do, what I wouldn't recommend, is the comp set has to have enough units for you to have good data. I sometimes see operators will have custom-made comp sets, and then there's like 7 units in the comp set. That is not enough data, right? Because can you imagine that for whatever reason, a big group comes into town and books those units? You're going to be thinking that, oh, wow, occupancy is like 100% in the market, you know? I got to be booked. I got to lower my prices. What if the real occupancy in the market is only like 10%, but people just happen to book those units that are in your comp set randomly? There's a lot of randomness because bookings depends on individual actions that are taken by human beings that consider a wide range of factors on why they book what they book. There's emotions involved. There's so much involved that you have to be very careful with drawing conclusions, and you have to make sure that your data set is big enough to allow for randomness, such that randomness is not going to affect your data too much. So if I have a comp set of 100 one bedrooms, if I have a one bedroom and my comp set is 100 one bedrooms in a radius around my unit, that's a good comp set because I'm including all the one bedrooms that are in. Some of them are probably going to be different than yours, right? If you have like super high end unit with a hot tub and a sauna and God knows what, yes, then it's going to be useful to maybe widen that radius and find more units that also have the hot tub and the sauna. But if your unit is pretty standard, it's better to include more units in your comp set, I think, than to get too obsessed with like, well, I have a ping pong table in the back. All the units in my comp set have to have a ping pong table in the back, right? It's nice to have a ping pong table. It's not too big enough of a factor to only want to look at other units that have a ping pong table, right? It's better to have more data than, I guess, include more units in your comp set versus going too small. It's typically better.
Beyond just the tangible price of a property, there's other things that affect overall revenue as well. I mean, clearly everything affects it, but even down to, you've talked about cancellation policies, minimum night stay settings, cleaning fees. I'm curious if you've noticed any patterns with our clients of what matters the most with some of those other decisions beyond pricing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I'm sure you've booked an Airbnb, right? How many things do you look at in your booking decision? What are the factors that play a role in your booking decision?
Definitely the whole breakdown of the price, right? It's like cleaning fee, any discounts, overall price, and then more personal factors after that. It's like bedroom layout and design of the property and location. All of those elements definitely play a role.
I would say typically you start with the non-negotiables, like location. If I book an Airbnb, I have a certain location in mind. Our location is probably the number one decider, right? If I want to book an Airbnb in Vegas, I'm not going to book it in New York, right? So it's like the location is the first big factor. Then the next thing is like, okay, how many bedrooms do I need? Yeah, there might be a unit that's super cheap, but if it's a studio and I have 6 people in my group, I'm not going to book it, right? So like there's a lot of factors, right? That play a part in the booking decision. Price is one of them, but it's only one of them. You got to understand that there's a lot of other factors that play a role. And also, like if I want to book a 2-night stay, any unit that has a 3-night minimum is not even going to show up. If it has a strict cancellation policy and I'm booking a couple months in advance with a few friends, who knows what could happen? I'm not going to book it. I'm not going to book if a unit has a strict cancellation policy, I'm not booking it because I know, like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, if I book it, 2 days in advance, that's fine. But if I book it a few months in advance, then I'm not going to book it if it has a strict cancellation policy, no matter how attractive the price is. Cancellation policies, there's so many factors that play a role in the booking decision process. We have to look at all of those. So when we meet with our clients on Zoom, we don't just talk about pricing. What we do is we look at our performance and we look at, hey, which of the units are not performing as we would expect? And then why is that happening? We try to understand that. And we're not just looking at pricing, because if we're competitively priced, but the unit is pacing behind, that means there's something else going on. And typically it is either the listing isn't optimized, there's been some bad reviews, or if sometimes we onboard clients and they have strict cancellation policies, the first thing I do is like get rid of that. It's not going to maximize your revenue if you have a strict cancellation policy. There are exceptions to the rule, maybe, okay? But for the most part, that's not an optimal cancellation policy. Airbnb doesn't like that, and they're not going to give you much visibility. We try to find out if a unit is underperforming, we try to find out why, and that typically 70-80% of the time it's not pricing, it's actually something else that we need to fix. And then we help our clients to fix that.
Yeah. And that's super powerful. Clients tell us that they really appreciate the depth of knowledge that we have in the short-term rental space, because everything affects revenue. At the end of the day, we're putting in all of the revenue that we can get, and there's lots of things that are impacting that, but there's also things that potentially are harming that as well. So you have to look at it holistically. And I think that's one of the things that our revenue managers and you really excel at. It's never been just about the pricing tool or just about those settings. It's always been this holistic look at the health of the business so that you can maximize revenue in every opportunity, because the compounding effect of all of those little micro decisions make a massive difference. Walk me through, like, when you open up a pricing tool, reports are you looking at? What metrics are you looking at? What are you paying most attention to?
First of all, I would look at the MPI for the next 3 months. I would take the average for the portfolio to see like, hey, how are we pacing along with the market? Are we pacing behind? Are we pacing ahead? That's the first thing I look at. Then I look at the distribution of the MPIs through between the different units. So for example, I did a ref, we call it a ref, a revenue review for a potential client today. If you look at their MPI for October, November, December, it looked great. 100, 110, 120%. So a little bit ahead of the market, but not much. So that looks great. But then I looked at the individual units and they have about 30 units or so. About 10 units were pacing at like 150 to 250%. And then about 5 of the units were pacing around 100. And then 15 units were pacing like way behind, like 60, 50, 40%. So the average was around 100, but there was like huge discrepancies between the individual units. So some units were priced too low, some units were priced too high. So that's the second thing I look at. Then I would typically go, because there's really 3 pillars that we talk about. It's where we see the most improvement, right? Number 1 is the pacing. Number 2 is the minimum night stay settings. And then number 3 is the OTA merchandise. So the second thing I typically look at is what kind of minimum night stay strategy is this operator using? Now, oftentimes, I don't know where this idea came from, but it's a very popular idea that we should be more restrictive in the future. So a typical minimum night stay profile is like standard is like a 2-2, like 2 night minimum stay for the weekdays and 2 for the weekends. In the last 7 days, we'll drop it to 1, all right, to fill up last minute occupancy. 30 days out, we increase it to 3. 45 days out, we increase it to 4. And then like 60 days out, we increase it to 5, something like that. And then you look at the booking window, I'm like, okay, if we're restricting 2 night stays 30 days out and the booking window is like 3 months, and most people are booking 1 or 2 night stays, then essentially, again, we're closing down the shop from 9 to 2, right? And we're only open in the last couple hours. Yeah, if people are booking 2 night stays and you put your minimum night stay settings as 3 nights, then guess what? You're not going to get a lot of bookings. But people, they will argue, well, but we're still early on. We still have time to fill up. So we rather have these longer bookings. Yeah, but now you're essentially like trying to fill your units in the last part of the booking window. That's when everybody starts dropping their prices. So is that really worth trying to force people to book a 3 night stay, even though they want to book a 2 night stay? Probably not. And by the way, you know what's funny? We've had several portfolios where people had this strategy and we would just switch it to like 2 night minimum stay the entire year. And then last minute, 1 night. The funny part is that we actually looked at how that affected their length of stays, and it actually did change. So even though we were allowing people to book shorter stays like further out, we still were getting the same amount of longer stays as well. So just because you have a 2 night minimum stay doesn't mean that no one's going to book a 3 night or a 4 night or a 5 night or a 7 night or even like a month. In fact, we've seen examples where we lowered the minimum night stay settings, we made it more flexible, and our length of stay actually went up. And you know why? It's because OTAs will give you more visibility. Like if you meet with your Airbnb account manager, they're always going to tell you 2 things: lower your prices and allow 1 night stays. Why? Because that's in Airbnb's interest, or I'm talking about Airbnb, but it's pretty much the same thing for other platforms. They're going to tell you, Airbnb account managers are not going to tell you what to do to maximize your revenue. They're telling you what to do, what they've been told by their supervisor what to tell you, right? So they're going to be telling you like what they want. Irony is that in the end of the day, if you do what Airbnb wants, you're probably also going to make more money because then Airbnb is going to give you more visibility. So I think the one particular portfolio in Myrtle Beach where we actually lowered the minimum night stays for the low season. And then we ended up getting like way more long-term bookings than the previous year. And so that was an interesting observation. It's like we made the restrictions more flexible, but we got more longer bookings. And I think it's because the Airbnb algorithm likes it that you're allowing shorter stays. So they're going to push the listing to more people. And so more people means more bookings and also more long-term bookings. At least that's my hypothesis. I can't say I know this for a fact, but it seems to be the case.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. So to wrap this up, you have opened up those dashboards, you've looked at those settings, you notice that you have those properties that are pacing way behind, those outliers in a negative direction. What's maybe the first 1 or 2 things that you're going to try with those properties to catch them back up? And then how do you judge if that worked or not?
If we're pacing way behind, we're going to be lowering prices right now. How we're going to do that depends on a few things. If I'm looking at October, November, December, there might be certain periods within those months that are pacing behind. I will look at how our prices are compared to the market to see like, hey, are we overpriced in certain periods, or is it like a general, if we're overpriced for the entire year and our base price is just too high, then we would lower our base price. Another thing is that PriceLabs has a seasonality factor. Right? So like in the high season, PriceLabs, or I say PriceLabs, but any tool works like this. If it's high season, there'll be a factor, a percentage that will be added to the price, to the base price. High season, maybe in July, it will be like 30% or 40%. January, maybe like minus 15 or something like that, right? So there's seasonality that the pricing tool will build into your pricing, but it's typically, from what we've seen, it's typically too flat. You may, not always, sometimes it's good, but not always. It depends. So you don't necessarily want to change the base price, because if you change the base price, you're going to change the prices for the entire calendar. So we might put an override, just a manual override on the listing, or we might set up a seasonal profile. If we see like, hey, our low seasons are just priced too high and our high seasons are priced too low, maybe we'll create a seasonal profile, drop the base price a little bit on the low season and raise it a little bit at the high season, right? It all depends on what the situation is. It also depends on, like I mentioned, like pickup. If we're low on occupancy, but we're getting a lot of bookings, and maybe let's wait a week and see, if the pickup continues, maybe we don't need to lower prices and our occupancy will automatically catch up. The short answer is, as always, it depends.
Always in the details. And I think this was such a great episode to just hammer that fact home, that there are so many different factors at play here. And we are very excited because we're offering something that we've never done before at Verma at our booth. So we have booth 1118 on the expo floor at VRMA, and we're going to be running, by we, I mean Jasper and one of our revenue managers. I'm not touching this, but we're going to be running what we're calling turbo revenue reports, where we look at some of these top leverage factors and actually determine where you're making mistakes and potentially how much more revenue you could be making if you fix those mistakes. Can you talk just a little bit more? Did I miss anything, Jasper?
No, you summarized it pretty well. Our regular process, what we call a ref, is to dive into your pricing tool, to look at your listings and get an understanding of like where the biggest improvements are. That typically, it will take us probably like 45 minutes, maybe an hour to complete. But we want to help as many people as possible at VRMAs. So we figured out a way where we can get like a revenue report in less time. So like about 15 minutes or so, and still get a good indication of what's the 80-20 essentially, right? We won't go as deep into the little specifics and won't get as granular, but we're doing a turbo ref. Yeah, in 15 minutes, we can tell you where are the biggest opportunities for you to increase your revenue. So I think it's worth your time.
100%. Yes. That and the Pricing Power Skills Lab that we mentioned, absolutely. Obviously, you have to be there, but it's free once you're there, and we'll be sharing the behind the scenes of how we make this all happen. I hope that we will see tons of you at Verma. I cannot wait to meet all of you. This is going to be my very first short-term rental industry conference, so I am especially excited, and I know Jasper is as well. So see us there. And then if you're not going to be at Verma, we do this longer version of the revenue report. So you can head over to freewildfoundry.com/report. And as long as you're doing $1 million or more in annual bookings, that's absolutely free. And you'll walk away with improvements that you can make right off the bat. Or if you're like me and after listening to this episode, you're like, I absolutely do not want to manage this myself, then we can do that for you. We'll let you know if we think that we would be a good fit to partner together. Jasper, thank you so much. This was enlightening, and I appreciate all of your time and expertise.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking really good questions. And I look forward to the next episode.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.